For the past months, myself and two absolutely amazing builders worked on a small Minecraft build. And now, after countless hours, sleepless nights and way too many just one more block moments, I can finally say it is here. Whoa, you can't see that yet. That would be way too much of a spoiler this early on. We've still got over 10 minutes of video left before I can show you this moment. So I'd say for now, why don't we take a step back, rewind a bit and see where this entire journey even started. Ah, there it is. Hey, somebody actually used my suggestion box. Yes, believe it or not, this project didn't even start as my own idea. It was a Patreon supporter who suggested I should build an Elsa-like ice castle. But you know me, I can't just build a castle, that'd be way too boring. I need drama, I need scale and I need questionable decisions at 2 AM. So after sketching out a few concepts, I eventually landed on this idea. A winter-themed mega build featuring custom ice spike terrain, a massive ancient skeleton, and of course the majestic ice castle perched on top. Yep, seems about perfect. Let's begin. And every great build needs a great foundation, so let's start by doing the terrain. Right now everything is looking pretty empty. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Since I'm going for an ice spike biome vibe, I want the landscape to feel jagged and chaotic. So I'm starting off by placing a ton of rough boulders to shape the main form of the terrain. So the entire build sits on an island, so I figured why not turn the whole thing into a bunch of drifting ice flows, separated just slightly. Basically frozen chaos, but make it a bit aesthetic. And now that the base shape's done, it's time for colors. After testing a few palettes, this one looked the best. It's got snowy tops, frozen sides and a stone and ice mixture on the bottoms. And just so you know, the magenta areas mark where the ocean will be frozen over. Honestly, this looks pretty nice so far. I'm just gonna add a few icicles here and there, and just like that, the terrain is finished. Cut to a great cinematic. Now, with the terrain done, we can move on to the star of the show, the giant skeleton, the foundation of everything that's coming next. And like always, I'm starting with the head. For me, it sets the attitude, the tone, and most importantly, the scale. If I can get the skull right, the rest of the build almost falls into place. So, I pulled together a bunch of references to guide the shaping. And at first I was sure I was going for a dinosaur skull. But once I started sketching things out, the idea just wasn't clicking. A more dragon-like skull started to make way more sense. It just fit the personality of the build better. I mean, look at this dinosaur skull reference. Cool, yeah, but way too narrow. If I use this shape, the castle on top would have to be completely squished together. And that's definitely not the vibe we're after. So instead I'm going with a wider, more imposing dragon skull. That gives me the room I need to build a proper castle on top, something that actually looks like it belongs there. Now, when I work on skulls like this, I'm always tweaking little shapes, shifting bones around, nudging details until it feels right. And of course, one of the most important details, the thing that sells the whole creature, is the teeth. So it's time for me to craft some predatory, you definitely don't want to meet this thing, teeth. Now that the head shape is finally looking right, we can move on to the rest of the body. Since this isn't meant to be a full skeleton, I'm letting it curve down into the terrain, partly buried under layers of snow and ice, just like in the reference I sketched earlier. The goal is it should look like something ancient, something the winter swallowed long time ago. And because I ended up going with the dragon style skull, I figured the arms shouldn't just be arms. No, this creature deserves massive, fully developed wings stretched out across the landscape like it's been resting there for centuries. And with that, the main silhouette of the organic is now complete. But before I jump into details, I'm going to do some rough smoothing. Yes, I know there are commands that can do this for me nowadays, but for shapes this complex I still prefer doing it by hand. It adds a bit of personality. And next up is coloring. For the skeleton I didn't want to use the usual bright yellow bone palette you see in most builds, it just didn't fit the vibe. Instead I'm going for a petrified fossil oak, something ancient, cold and worn by time. So I'm swapping the classic bone blocks for muted greys and soft beige tones, giving the whole structure that old weathered aesthetic I'm aiming for. Now moving on to the main body. I'm giving it a slightly darker shade so it stands out from the skull and doesn't all blend together. A little contrast goes a long way, especially in builds this size. Coloring though, coloring always takes forever. If you're not super into building, you might look at this and think, oh yeah, that's probably like 5 minutes of work. Let me assure you, it is not. It's hours of swapping blocks, tweaking tiny areas, retweaking them, second guessing your choices and then retweaking them again. But if you take the time to do it right, it absolutely pays off. Good coloring can elevate a build more than almost anything else. And with that said, the coloring is done. Here's what the organic looks like now. And now it's time for my coffee break. And whilst I enjoy my perfectly balanced cup of motivation, here's a quick reminder. If you want to download this build or any of my previous projects, consider checking out Patreon. You'll find the schematics and world files for over 100 custom creations I've made over the years. Feeling fully motivated? Then let's get back to the video. Now that my energy is fully restored and the organic part is finally complete, we can move on to the next step, the castle. And for this one I brought back up two incredible builders who joined me for this part of the journey. In the left corner, Beef Builds, master of structures, detail wizard and recently celebrated hitting 10k followers on Instagram. And in the right corner we've got, well, good luck pronouncing that name. Let's just say his username translates to forgetful, which makes sense, because his Instagram page looks like he forgot the password about 3 years ago. Okay, that's enough introductions for now. Let's get to the important part. Time to build a castle. For the ice castle I ended up making a little change of plans. If you remember the original reference, I was aiming for a classical medieval style castle. Big walls, tall towers, the whole stereotypical package. But once I actually started building, it felt too predictable. A bit too default castle. So I decided to switch things up. I made a second design, something less ice castle and more ice palace. A little fancier, a little more elegant and honestly much closer to the vibe I wanted. And with the redesign ready, Beef Builds and I began working on the layout. Nothing super magical at this stage, just placing squares, placing more squares and then deleting a few squares until the whole thing starts to look kind of nice. Alright, so we've been slowly building this castle and now it's starting to take shape. All it really needs are a few finishing touches here and there and suddenly it's beginning to look like a full-blown palace. But then we hit a little problem. The backside. Currently it's totally empty. I'd only planned for the front, so the back felt, well, kinda sad. That's when I got an idea. I asked myself, what's missing here? And then it hit me. A massive, dramatic entrance. And of course, for a grand entrance like this, we're gonna need a super long, epic staircase. So that's exactly what I built. And with the castle blueprint finally coming together, it's time to take things up a notch. We'll be leaving the sign wall behind and turning this whole thing into an ice palace. It's going to be a lot of detail work, but luckily I'm not starting from scratch. I already have an ice version of the towers ready, a little template I built earlier. So I'll be using that as a guide while transforming the rest of the palace into a frosty masterpiece. And just look at it, doesn't that already look insanely stylish? Very chilly. Now I haven't built a castle in years, so naturally I was feeling very proud of myself. So proud in fact that I sent some screenshots to my friends. Their response: "Looks great, but why is the skull floating? Shouldn't it fall down?" Right, that part. See, I originally planned for a giant spike to be piercing through the skull, but it didn't look right. At all. But obviously I can't just leave it levitating like a confused helium balloon. So give me a minute. And there we go. Much better. And now that we've got this sorted out, there's only one thing left to do. The interior. Now if you've been watching me for a while, this won't surprise you at all. I'm not an interior guy. At all. My interior skills usually peak at: here's the bed and a crafting table, good luck with the rest. But luckily for me, I have a solution. Remember that one guy I mentioned a few minutes ago? Yeah, that guy. Turns out he's ridiculously good at interiors. I've worked with him before and let me tell you, what he creates inside these builds is nothing short of phenomenal. But you don't have to take my word for it. See for yourself. And it's finally here. After all the terrain, the massive skeleton, the ice palace and even the interior. Every single piece is done. So now it's time to do what every builder lives for. Step back, zoom out and really take it all in.
Guys and watch as they reflect the stars. Maybe when we fall asleep I see you in a dream, ignoring the alarm. 'Cause I don't wanna wake up unless I'm running.